Hello, I'm Jen Peterson, and along with Allie McGuire, we are going to give you an introduction to our social emotional learning pod, which we also will refer to as SEL pod. Some of the things that I'll be covering are staff backgrounds and the roles that we play in this pod. We'll talk about a kind of an overview of what this looks like for each program year, an example of an SEL lesson outline, and an example of a lesson plan. We'll talk about some of the competencies that we'll be covering in our classes and where to potentially send any comments or questions. I will tell you a little bit more about myself. Again, I'm Jen Peterson. I am one of the SEL instructors. I have a certificate in conflict resolution, which comes in really handy, especially during circles in the apartments. I do have a background in teaching and in outdoor recreation as well. I have been at MICC quite a while. This will be my 10th school year, and I've worked in a lot of the positions here at MICC. So I kind of have a good respect for the trials and tribulations that each instructor can go through for each class and what the students can take out of the opportunities that they're given as well. So what is social emotional learning? Well, students acquire knowledge by learning about these main characteristics that we'll find on the social and emotional learning core competency wheel. First, we have self-management. This is the management of emotions and behaviors to achieve one's goals. And we have lots of opportunities for goal setting. Second piece is self-awareness. And in this wheel, we recognize one's emotions and values as well as one's strengths and limitations. Always continuing to work on the strengths as well as working through the limitations. Third, we have responsible decision making, where we're just giving it our best to make ethical and constructive choices about personal and social behavior. Lots of lessons around decision making, from making small decisions to very large, important life decisions. One of the areas that we hit the most, I would say, off of this wheel is the relationship skills, where we're trying to form positive relationships. We work in lots of different team dynamics, and we really try to work through conflict. And that can be found in pretty much every single class that we even teach at MICC. And lastly, we have the social awareness piece, where we're demonstrating understanding and empathy. Here is an example of a lesson outline for the first 6 weeks of a social skills 101 type class. It basically follows the curriculum set up for the 411 class. The first week, as in most classes, will have the standard introduction, syllabus, expectations. Really, though, revolves around what the students in the class set up for expectations for themselves and what they would like to see in their peers and from their instructor. So it's a little more person-centered. And then we talk about 5-point scale, lots about grading, and then we kind of get to roll into some team building activities. So overall, introduction to the class. Second and third week might look like components of a conversation, which we'll see a little bit more of in the lesson plan in the next slide. Fourth week, looking really closely at emotions, behavior, and impressions. So main objective here is reading and responding to how someone might be feeling. Into week 5, initiating and ending conversation. A little bit more in depth about proper conversation etiquette, involving greetings, goodbyes, introductions, as well as touching on what that looks like in person versus on the phone or using technology. And week 6, just for an example, a little bit more in depth about tone and voice volume with some additional practice using proper tone and voice control given certain scenarios. Now we'll get a chance to look at a lesson plan on basic conversations that typically would take 2 weeks out of our semester. We first look at the competency and components that are addressed in this class that we will be grading on. I like the learning goals, so I, as the instructor, know what my specific goal is for that class, including knowing the components of a conversation, understanding why simply skipping one of the components may directly affect their ability to maintain relationships, and so that eventually they will learn to do and follow basic conversation etiquette to carry on meaningful conversations. So like I said earlier, there are a lot of components of a conversation. We've got conversation starters. We look at body language. All the pieces are involved with verbal and nonverbal cues. Turn taking, asking questions, and actually being interested in the other's perspective. Staying on topic. Topic transitions is kind of part of that too. And tone and voice volume, as well as interjecting yourself into a conversation. And one of my favorite parts of this lesson, appropriate versus inappropriate conversations. And then you see that there's assessment methods attached to each lesson plan.